Just a moment.
I've been avoiding reviews, gameplay videos, even my own friends' streams of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, and I avoided streaming this game because, well, one, I wasn't expecting it was given to me as a gift, but mostly because I didn't even want the chat to potentially influence my opinion of this one way or the other. You could say that when it came to getting an unfiltered, uninfluenced opinion, I went above and beyond. Samus gets called in to help deal with one of many assaults on Galactic Federation research facilities led by Sylux, who other than Metroid Prime hunters finally makes an appearance outside of a special ending. Some artifact gets banged up and causes a massive energy pulse to engulf everyone and everything in the outpost. Samus finds herself in a strange alien civilization on a planet called Vuros, and she needs to use the technology and abilities of the long-gone alien race, the Lemorn, to both preserve records of their technology in existence, because she is apparently the Chosen One.
Chosen One! I'm coming! Chosen One! I'm coming!
And figure out what the hell happened with that artifact and how she can get herself and any survivors back to where they were. And what abilities does Samus gain from Lemorn technology?
Psychic powers.
You can tell they're psychic powers because she has her hand out and points or gestures at stuff or the side of her head to move or scan things. The whole psychic slant is iffy in Prime 4, varying from a cool addition to feeling like an unnecessary coat of paint. Sometimes it introduces some nice abilities that add to the puzzle-solving parts of the game, like the guided charge shots. Sometimes it introduces frustrating combat elements even with the ability to lock onto targets, like the guided charge shots. And other times it barely affects anything. The psychic beam is more or less just the regular beam, and the psychic boots are more or less the high jump boots, except for the psychic platform thing. Regardless, everything looks great and runs smoothly. I played the Switch version because I might never own a Switch 2, and I didn't notice any slowdown or frame drops. The biggest issue here is load times. Loading a save from the title screen took well over a minute, and entering a new area resulted in these transition screens where Samus is either standing in a lift, riding a motorcycle that looks like something out of Extreme G, or jogging down a hallway. These load times aren't great either, so on this version I had to get used to seeing Samus either doing nothing or getting her cardio in. This was always from a manual save, by the way, as the autosaves don't make much sense for when or where they happen. I'd often go to save myself and see that the last autosave happened a half hour ago or longer, even if I had just fought a boss. The controls also gave me minimal issues, though I did play with the more traditional twin-stick scheme and never tried the more motion-based option. Combat is smooth and feels natural, with some exceptions. There are some weapons utilized through visor mode, and even several hours in I would find myself fumbling between non-visor and visor mode to use the weapon or ability I wanted to. And that charged psychic shot that can be controlled always felt like I was piloting an energy beam that had too much to drink. It didn't help that the lock-on for it sometimes just wouldn't work, or would end up guiding it into stuff I didn't want it to hit. The lock-on gave me problems outside of visor mode too, as sometimes I would lock onto something and Samus would start firing way off to the side of my target. Still, particularly for bosses or mini-bosses, the game does well to incorporate these abilities and encourage experimenting to figure out how to approach each of these fights. It also does well to change other things up from other Metroid games. The artifact's energy pulse gives a natural excuse for knocking out many of Samus's previously gained abilities and technology, but it doesn't take out everything. She starts off with the Various Suit, the Morph Ball, and technically the Spring Ball, and the new psychic abilities and stuff like the Psychic Lasso interspersed with the usual kind of abilities expected from a Metroid game help set itself apart from most of the other Metroids in terms of progression. Plus, a number of natural barriers like ice walls, lava flows, amber, and thick webbing are incorporated, not just leaving options to come back and explore later with more weapons, but also meaning that not everything is just a door with a different color or a lock on it. Though there are still plenty of the latter. This progression is aided, sort of, by another new addition, the Viola motorcycle. After a certain point, Samus unlocks the ability to instantly summon this for movement in certain areas and even for unlocking certain doors. She can still use the scanning visor and a combination of boosts and slides to effectively attack on it, and even gets a sleek-looking suit specifically for Viola. One used for an amiibo that you need to buy and scan if you want to have any background music for the big-ass desert the motorcycle gets most of its use in. Which brings me to the problem I had with the Viola. This desert section got boring pretty fast. Aside from paywalling the proper background music, it's so vast and has so little to find given its size that even when boosting around, which you have to let recharge unless you're constantly going at max speed or hitting certain objects which may not be there, it's still a lot of the same sandy ground to cover when zipping between different areas to investigate. The same applies to backtracking to certain spots, as I didn't see any sort of fast travel option like in, for example, Metroid Dread. Speaking of Dread, now the part I've been avoiding talking about. Mackenzie.
On a planet with no hope of survival. But you're also not sitting next to Phil anymore in that cubicle, so... Win?
Given what happens near the beginning of this game, I'm not against the idea of a Galactic Federation soldier or soldiers ending up on the other side with Samus. I'm just against the first one she encounters about 40 minutes in being this Galactic Federation soldier.
It's about to get real nerdy in here.
I was trying to think of how to describe the dynamic between Samus and Mackenzie, and I think this is what I've settled upon. If Samus were a streamer, Mackenzie would be everyone in the chat. He always has some reaction to an enemy at the beginning of or after combat, he tries and fails to be funny a little too often, and he keeps reminding Samus of shit she already knows, whether it's reminding her of weapons I was already using, or bringing up stuff that Samus just learned in a cutscene that happened less than a minute ago. That and his general attitude create this distracting tonal dissonance given how the rest of the game is presented. I'm convinced that if Mackenzie weren't allowed to say anything the Lamorne or a computer already told Samus, about 1/3 of his dialogue would be gone. Take away his mid-battle shrieks and out-of-battle non-sequiturs, and that's roughly 2/3 of his dialogue.
You are sneaky quiet, you know that?
Speaking of battle, Mackenzie is an engineer, so he's pretty much useless in any combat scenario, which is important because he does follow you around at some points. He can shoot with his sidearm, but I can't remember him actually damaging anything with it. As such, his main duty is pretending he's helpful in cutscenes. This isn't to say that he's annoying every time he opens his mouth, but there is an option to turn the character speech volume down. And yes, I did lower that to 0 a few times, particularly when he figured out how to contact Samus via radio, meaning I had fewer chances to escape him as he turned himself into a sci-fi version of Navi the Fairy. There are times when Samus is too far away or electrical interference jams the radio signal and you're completely on your own, which is when the game is at its strongest, I'd say, letting you take in new environments, fend off new enemies, solve new puzzles, and then Mackenzie butts in. And just to compound how much I don't like this guy, there are new abilities that are delivered in the form of chips, which Samus needs to carry all the way back to Mackenzie so that he can turn into the Geek Squad and slot them into her arm cannon. This guy doesn't outright ruin the game, given that he does go silent for stretches here and there, and oh yeah, there are other Galactic Federation members Samus encounters along the way, ones who are far more tolerable. But my experience was worse whenever the Galactic video game nerd took a dialogue dump in my ear.
This is what you call a broken-ass, ball-busting bitch fucker of a game!
When I am simply allowed to just get lost in the world of Prime 4, the vast majority of it is good, save for some nagging mechanical issues or the closest thing Metroid will get to Desert Bus. I can still enjoy Prime 4, though my level of enjoyment isn't at the level of, say, Dread or Samus Returns or, hell, the first couple Prime games. With those, I was itching for the next opportunity to sit down and spend the next 4 or 5 or 8 hours with it. I'm extremely curious about how many things in this game were held over from before Retro Studios was brought back in to work on it, but that info might be best left buried. In a desert. On a faraway planet. Next to a Galactic Federation engineer who wouldn't look out of place as an extra in Office Space. Sorry, was that too specific?